Asterion's voice echoed off the duracrete walls of the abandoned research facility as he surveyed the devastation. It can't be a coincidence, Lyrien. An entire quadrant wiped out without so much as a stellar tremor to warn us. His younger sister, Lyrien, stood beside him, her eyes scanning the rubble-strewn floor. Her gaze lingered on a massive console, its screen shattered beyond repair. Maybe it's not about warnings, Asterion. Maybe we've lost our edge in understanding the quantum currents that govern this universe. Their commander, Vexar, appeared at the entrance of the facility, flanked by two bulky guards. His armor bore the emblem of the Timekeeper Assembly, an organization tasked with preserving knowledge in a world teetering on the brink of catastrophe. "Report," Asterion demanded, his tone tinged with concern. Vexar's expression was grim. "We've encountered another echo. No, not just an echo, a remnant, of an event we thought was impossible, a catastrophic disruption in the fundamental fabric of space-time." Lyrien exchanged a look with her brother. Their eyes spoke volumes. They both recalled the theoretical treatises on such disruptions, how unstable nodes could create miniature black holes. "What's the connection to our own mission?" Asterion pressed for details. Vexar gestured towards an attached holographic display, streaming what appeared to be raw data from the remnant site. "It looks like this disruption has left a singularity at its core. Our best theories indicate it will stabilize into an inverted node, effectively ripping worlds apart." Asterion's grip on his Omni tool tightened as he leaned forward, analyzing the data flowing across the hologram. A realization dawned, and with it, responsibility. What if? Lyrien ventured softly, her words slicing through the silence like a cry for understanding. The quantum currents aren't just our universe's governing principle. What if there's more to it? The faint hum of the facility's residual systems was interrupted by an incoming communication from their ship, the Seraphim. The communications screen on Vexar's armor flickered to life, displaying a cryptic message from the Seraphim. "Residual energies detected. Quantum flux instability imminent." Vexar's expression darkened as he relayed the update to Asterion and Lyrien. The siblings exchanged worried glances. This was not part of their original mission parameters. "It seems our analysis wasn't wrong," Asterion said, his eyes locked on the holographic display streaming raw data from the remnant site. "But there's more to this than just a singularity stabilizing into an inverted node. The quantum currents are far more complex than we thought," Lyrien added, her brow furrowed in concern. "What if these events are not isolated incidents? What if they're connected?" Vexar nodded firmly. "We need to understand the source of this anomaly. The Seraphim will alter its course to investigate further. We'll follow shortly, once we have a comprehensive analysis of our current data." As the commander finished speaking, Asterion's grip on his Omni tool tightened once more. He discovered something peculiar, an obscure entry in one of the facility's databases, hinting at a long-abandoned project codenamed Erebus. "What is it, brother?" Lyrien inquired, sensing her siblings' growing unease. Asterion hesitated before continuing. "This Erebus, if our theories about the quantum currents are correct, I think I found evidence of an experimental attempt to harness or manipulate them, something that might explain this catastrophic anomaly." Lyrian's eyes widened as she approached the console where Asterion worked, peering over his shoulder at the entry on the screen. "You're talking about altering reality itself," she whispered, her voice trembling with alarm. Vexar turned a stern gaze towards the siblings, interrupting their exchange. "Our priorities remain unchanged, understanding this anomaly and preventing any further destabilization. Leave that particular curiosity for us to address once we reach the Seraphim." With Vexar's words echoing through the dimly lit facility, Asterion couldn't shake off the sensation that he'd uncovered something crucial, a potential key to unraveling the mystery of the quantum currents, and perhaps even preventing cataclysmic devastation. As they journeyed through the uncharted expanse of space, Asterion's mind remained fixated on the enigmatic entry codenamed Erebus. He pored over every detail, reining in his excitement to avoid drawing unnecessary attention from Vexar and Lyrien. The Seraphim's altered course loomed ahead, an imposing behemoth cutting a path through the void. Holographic mapping suggests we're closing in on the remnant site, Asterion said, calling upon Lyrien's data expertise. Have we pinpointed any telltale resonant frequencies? Lyrien shifted uncomfortably, her eyes flicking between data streams coursing across several consoles. Her fingers danced over a holographic keyboard as she invoked advanced pattern recognition algorithms to refine their analysis. Sensitivity fluctuations in the resonance matrix indicate possible— Wait, Asterion, this isn't right, Lyrien muttered under her breath, concern creeping into her voice. Asterion's grip on his Omni tool tightened in anticipation. Spit it out, sis. Something doesn't feel intact to you? We've detected residual echoes of Erebus, an anomaly from the remnant we encountered earlier, somehow intertwined with the quantum current flows at this site, Lyrien replied hesitantly. Explain, Vexar ordered, a measured tone infusing his words as he converged on the siblings' position. This analysis could be critical to grasping the quantum phenomenon. Lyrien glanced at her brother before speaking, her shoulders squaring up for the confrontation ahead. What if these events aren't disconnected? Erebus might hold more answers than we initially believed, an attempt by an unknown entity to harness quantum energy and exploit its power. Asterion's jaw flexed in irritation at Lyrien's words, suggesting the impossible, manipulating or exploiting the quantum currents. This reeks of catastrophe. We should be wary, though, Vexar admitted, an almost husky tone creeping into his voice, an intimation that his concern for humanity superseded their current mission goals. Erebus raises alarming questions about the extent of our universe's complexity and what lies beyond. Vexar halted ahead of Asterion and Lyrien, hand hovering over a console as he reoriented himself in space. A faintly luminescent anomaly flickered to life across his suit's visor. It would seem we are about to be reminded that we barely grasp the first layer of reality. Vexar's hand settled on the console, initiating a soft glow around them as he worked to resync their navigation charts with the anomaly. Asterion watched closely, his eyes never leaving the holographic display, streaming data from the remnant site. Erebus, Vexar muttered. If we tie it to this phenomenon, it means someone attempted to warp reality's fabric and paid for it in unfathomable cosmic currency. Lyrien turned to her brother. What if they succeeded in their bid, but at an unforeseen cost, something we can't grasp without knowing what truly lies beyond the veil of our reality? Asterion scrunched up his face, hesitant. That feels like an impossible claim, even if there's a chance someone did manipulate reality. As he spoke, Vexar cut him off with a firm command. The soft hum returned to the holographic consoles as Vexar activated their shipboard computers in hailing mode, initiating communication with the Seraphim on a subspace frequency. Asterion found himself caught up in an urgent conversation that seemed disconnected from the events transpiring at the remnant site. This is Captain Jackson of the Seraphim, the Comsys speaker burbled into existence beside Vexar's armor as his voice vibrated slightly over an undulating background of static. Timekeeper assembly vessels are reporting anomalies consistent with Erebus. Static surged, momentarily drowning out the rest of his words. Say again, Lyrien asked, her voice firm amidst growing unease. Static softened into silence before Captain Jackson voiced himself again, this time clearly. The Seraphim will adjust course within minutes to analyze potential vectors on remnant activity and Erebus residue. Analysis reveals anomalies with resonance wave harmonics that echo. Vexar's hand tightened around the comms device as Captain Jackson's voice spilled into their orbit. Seraphim, this is Vexar. Repeat your message. The static-draped transmission smoothed out as it filtered through to their suit visors. Vexar, Seraphim, this is Captain Jackson, confirming anomalies align with Erebus signatures. Recommendation, you're shifting course to pinpoint the source, Vexar finished, his eyes flicking toward the navigation charts, dancing in holographic majesty across the console. Helm will adjust our course trajectory accordingly. Estimated intercept time, 7 minutes and counting. Captain Jackson's voice, tempered by a hint of detachment, underscored the increasing urgency emanating from the Seraphim's AI lens systems. 7 minutes, Vexar echoed, the seconds clawing at their presence like impatient claws. His gaze pierced deeper into the navigation charts, mapping the increasingly complex dance of anomaly-tinged energy signatures unfolding in tandem with their own shipboard data streams. Erebus, This entity, Lyrien started cautiously, her words wending through each step as she guided Asterion toward understanding this new dimension in quantum dynamics. We could be standing at the crux, an attempt to harness quantum forces. Force might be putting it mildly, Vexar said quietly, his hand reaching out toward a nearby console where the faint blue glow resonance of navigation data, illuminated by wispy energy surges, indicated they were indeed closing in on something far greater than just an anomaly. With precision that belied her caution, Lyrien began manipulating multiple layers of the holographic projections, overlaying their ship's systems to better visualize how seemingly disparate threads wove together. Quantum echoes from Erebus now overlapped with anomalies of unknown origins. "You have anything on potential resonance triggers?" Vexar asked sharply, his interest piqued as the analysis merged and devolved into chaos theory mapped onto cosmic principles. "Not yet," Lyrien returned resolutely. "It's complex. Seems to depend on something we can't quite pinpoint." "Erebus," Asterion muttered under his breath, a glimmer of understanding breaking through in recognition. It wasn't just static, they'd glimpsed the universe's underpinning code. A faint hum grew louder as Captain Jackson cut back into their comms feed. "Vexar, Seraphim update. We've synchronized to the anomaly at your 470 mark. Beginning diagnostics on quantum harmonic resonance." The silence following his words was a measured pause. Then Vexar took hold of it, the words emerging from him like a promise. "At all costs, let's understand what you're facing." As the Seraphim adjusted its course to intercept the anomaly, Vexar couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that they were being herded toward some unknown destination. The comms feed with Captain Jackson had only added fuel to his unease. Every attempt at understanding Erebus seemed to push them further into uncharted territory. "What if this is more than just a simple anomaly?" Lyrien asked, eyes scanning the holographic displays that painted an ever-changing picture of their surroundings. Asterion nodded in agreement, voice tense as he added, "We can't rule out the possibility that whatever manipulated reality could still be affecting us now. Controlling this energy, or however it's manifesting, might hold the key." Vexar grunted, a low growl building inside his chest. "Or we'll see firsthand what happens when someone attempts to warp reality's fabric and fails." His eyes flitted toward Lyrien as the holographic mapping of energy patterns fluctuated wildly on the consoles before stabilizing into stark resolution. "We're closing in," Vexar muttered, a faint grimace twisting at his words. He worked tirelessly to harmonize their course corrections with Captain Jackson's guidance, an effort that might soon yield far more than insight alone. "Time is against us, Lyrien," Asterion injected gently, as if he sensed the frustration seeping into Vexar's tone. "The closer we get to this unknown, it gets harder to decipher reality's threads," Lyrien interjected softly, voice an echo of her brother's tense calmness. A silence blanketed them momentarily before Vexar spoke up once more. His thoughts were crystallizing around that impossible intersection point where Erebus's quantum echoes met new anomalies, resonating in both Lyrien and Asterion like a silent unison. "Erebus," Asterion murmured softly, a hesitant whisper seeping between his teeth, each spoken sound a thread spun by Lyrien's careful logic. It was on the precipice of unfolding, a chance to grasp more than fleeting impressions from Erebus' echo, something tangible. As they pierced the heart of the anomaly, a kaleidoscope of colors danced across the holographic screens like mad brushstrokes on a canvas. Vexar's eyes darted between the readings, his mind racing to keep pace with the ever-changing metric of quantum probabilities unfolding before them. "What's happening?" Asterion asked, his voice laced with trepidation as he clutched the edge of his console for support. "Erebus is manifesting its resonance vectors," Vexar replied, his words bitten off in rapid-fire succession. "The Seraphim's analysis confirms it. Our proximity to the anomaly has triggered an attempt at synchronization." Lyrien's eyes scanned the data streaming across her console with laser-like focus. "We can't let our systems get pulled into resonance. It'll disrupt our internal quantum harmonics." "Which will?" Vexar interjected, a hint of edginess creeping into his tone as he anticipated Asterion's response to the unfolding scenario. Asterion bit off a worried curse under his breath before speaking aloud. "Crash the shipboard systems. Erase all recorded data. The faint hum of warning alarms began to rise in shrill crescendo within their suit visors, like insectoid wings beating furiously to shatter the silence, as if the ship itself seemed to reject Asterion's dire prediction. It won't wait, Vexar whispered under his breath, hand closing on a device that would sever their connection to the anomaly, should it come to that. He studied the unfolding metrics like a surgeon operating with one thought: find the edge of what was known before, plunging blindly into darkness. A new voice interrupted Lyrien's sharp gasp, Vexar's eyes flicking toward the comms console as an encrypted signal sliced through their comm feed, courtesy of Captain Jackson on Seraphim, sending a shockwave through the tension already crackling in the air. Helm to Seraphim. Negative course plot ahead. You must deviate or allow us into the... Captain's cryptic warning trailed off amidst static and white noise that swelled across their comm system like a tidal wave, but it shook something loose within Vexar. Every shred of rational doubt disintegrated in a blinding flash, for there existed more unknowns, like secrets buried deep beneath star-infested mountains, yet to unfurl into awareness within any human heart. This is Seraphim. Recommendation: adjust our course trajectory to optimize resonance frequency lock. Captain Jackson's voice continued from the comms feed, his words dripping with urgency. Vexar's grip on the device tightened as he felt the familiar hum of the shipboard systems reaching critical levels. We can't shake off your warning, Captain, he barked into the comms channel, his words biting off like a snapped thread. We're closing in on Erebus. We need you inside that anomaly now. The Seraphim's captain injected a new note of resolve into his voice, as if anticipating the ship's impending breakdown. Vexar's gaze darted toward Lyrien and Asterion. The silence was heavy with anticipation. Their eyes met in understanding. They were the ones who would guide them through this labyrinthine convergence of quantum probabilities and Erebus's ever-shifting resonance vectors. The ship groaned softly around them as its internal systems quaked precariously. Helm to Seraphim, negative course plot ahead, a clipped, distorted voice interrupted Captain Jackson's plea, the unmistakable warning that echoed through their comms feed like an echo of impending doom. The ship shook harder now. Instruments shrieked and wailed at the margins of safe operation as the quantum harmonics began to unravel its internal fabric. What choice do we have? Asterion asked, his voice low but edged with desperation as he squinted into the rioting colors on the console displays. The systems are being pulled apart. Erebus doesn't wait. Vexar cut him off in a tone that was almost cold, though fear seeped through every syllable. We must try. Lyrien shot forward, her fingers a blur over the sleek console interface before it as she seized on the data unfolding like leaves torn from a breaking branch, her eyes flicking up with a question. What happens when we reach optimal synchronization? Captain Jackson's worried query continued to ride over the comms feed, each word strained through static and tension. It will destabilize, Vexar confirmed in clipped tones, though his voice wavered just so, each syllable now an act of sacrifice against rising doubts. It could erase all our data. Lyrien's hands danced upon the console as if to hold back that very chaos, fingers tapping across holographic interfaces with a rapid-fire efficiency born of desperation. Our systems aren't synchronized yet, she called out urgently, the words racing ahead. Erebus's influence is still outside our control. As Vexar's hands hovered over the console, the silence that spread through the Seraphim was a palpable thing. The flickering holographic displays seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, as if Erebus itself was stirring. Lyrien's fingers danced across her own console, coaxing forth data from the depths of the anomalous energy. Optimal synchronization will rewrite our internal harmonics, Vexar said finally, his words dripping with a fatalism that hung heavy in the air. If we try to adapt, it might burn out our systems entirely. Captain Jackson's warning on the comms feed still echoed through the ship's speakers. Helm, I need you inside that anomaly now. It's my best chance to understand Erebus's quantum signature. The words hung in suspension as Vexar debated with himself. We have no choice, Asterion said quietly, his voice a measured counterpoint to Vexar's growing unease. We must push forward. Lyrien looked up from her console, her eyes flashing with urgency as she caught the faintest hint of warning creeping into Captain Jackson's words on the comms feed. "There was something," she said intently, turning to Vexar and Asterion. "What do you mean?" Vexar asked gruffly. "I think he mentioned probability leakage," Lyrien replied, her voice low as she leaned in, finger sweeping across a holographic display with fathoms of data. "It's a term we've discussed before. We thought it irrelevant." Asterion raised an eyebrow, and a thin thread of tension laced between him and Vexar, who sensed the implications spreading through his thoughts like dark ripples in troubled waters. "Explain," Asterion prompted softly. Lyrien tapped at her console, images bursting into view, ghostly, shimmering lines that depicted shifting probabilities, probability waves collapsing. She felt an electric thrill run down her spine as she realized it was possible. The notion had seemed abstract until now. They were living it. "That's a map of what should be," Lyrien said with a breathlessness. "But there's this tiny bleed in one area. Their quantum signature must have overlapped our probability maps without us realizing it," Vexar interjected hastily, grasping the concept like he'd been handed a lifeline. "Erebus is rewriting itself." Asterion exclaimed softly as understanding lit up his features. "And then there should be that one point, when the line between past and future gets fuzzy." His gaze veered toward Lyrian's console, where she pointed out various fluctuations in their own signature, mapped to intersect within Erebus's wave patterns, minute blips echoing faintly like distant signals from lost stars, an unknown horizon opening up before them. The holographic displays surrounding Vexar pulsed with an otherworldly energy, as if Erebus itself was stirring. He stood rigid, his fingers hovering over the console like a scalpel poised to strike. Lyrian's words hung in the air, a challenge that needed to be met. "What happens when we reach optimal synchronization?" Captain Jackson's worried query continued to ride over the comms feed, each word strained through static and tension. Vexar's grip on the console tightened as he felt the familiar hum of the shipboard systems reaching critical levels. "Lyrien," Vexar barked, his voice a command for her attention. "Can you pinpoint that probability leakage we discussed?" Lyrian's fingers danced across her console with renewed urgency, coaxing forth data from the depths of the anomalous energy. Her eyes scanned the holographic displays as if searching for a lifeline. "We need more time," Lyrien protested softly, her voice laced with doubt. "We can't afford to push our harmonics any further." Asterion stepped forward, his face set in a determined expression. "I think I understand what you're trying to say, Captain Jackson. Probability leakage is an opening, a window into Erebus's quantum signature." Vexar's gaze snapped back to Lyrien, who was working feverishly to isolate the anomaly. "We can exploit that point," Vexar began, his voice measured, "but we'll need precision timing to avoid collapsing our systems entirely. Can you pinpoint the exact coordinates where our probability leak intersects with Erebus's wave patterns?" Lyrian's eyes met Vexar's, her gaze a challenge he was eager to accept. "We do this, or we risk losing all chance of understanding Erebus," Asterion said quietly, his voice an undercurrent beneath Lyrian's urgent typing. "Optimal synchronization will rewrite our internal harmonics. If we try to adapt, it might burn out our systems entirely." In the silence that followed, Vexar felt the weight of the decision settle upon him like a physical force. One misstep could seal their fate, and doom any chance of unraveling Erebus' mysteries. The holographic displays pulsed on, casting eerie shadows across the faces of the crew. It was here, at this exact moment, that their future hung in balance. Vexar stilled the tremble from his hand, a new resolve forging itself within him. Helm to Seraphim, Vexar's voice cut through the comms feed once more. "We're recalibrating our course. Asterion, what's your best estimate for optimal synchronization?" Asterion's fingers danced across his console as he calculated the risks and benefits of pushing forward. "If we can pinpoint the exact coordinates where our probability leak intersects with Erebus's wave patterns, I think we might just have a shot at stabilizing our systems long enough to learn something from this anomaly." Lyrian's gaze met Vexar's, her eyes sparkling with determination. "I'm getting close to isolating that point. But Vexar, the data is showing an unusual spike in Erebus's quantum signature." "Erebus is adapting." Captain Jackson's voice interrupted their conversation once more, his tone laced with caution. If you push too hard, you risk destabilizing your own harmonics. We understand, sir, Vexar interjected hastily. But we have to try. If this is our only chance at unraveling Erebus's secrets, I'll take that risk. The holographic displays surrounding them pulsed with an otherworldly energy, casting eerie shadows across their faces as they continued to refine their calculations. Lyrien's fingers flew across her console, conjuring forth reams of data and theoretical equations. Asterion stepped forward, his eyes shining with a quiet intensity. Vexar, we need to be precise. One misstep will collapse our systems. Are you sure this is what we want to do? Vexar's grip on the console tightened, a small smile playing on his lips as he contemplated the leap of faith they were about to take. I'm not just sure, I know it's worth it. We're pushing it too far, Asterion whispered, his voice a low counterpoint to the hum of the console. We're playing with fire here. Vexar's eyes remained fixed on Lyrien's console, where data streams whirled across the holographic displays like spectral rain. I'm getting close to isolating that point, she said, her fingers flying across her own console as if conjuring forth reams of data and theoretical equations. You can't pinpoint it yet? Captain Jackson's worried query continued to ride over the comms feed, each word strained through static and tension. Vexar felt the familiar hum of the shipboard systems reaching critical levels. Optimal synchronization is our best bet, Lyrien explained patiently, her eyes locked on Vexar's reflection in the console screen. But if we push too hard, it might burn out our systems entirely. Vexar turned to Asterion, his voice measured against the weight of doubt that had settled within him. We need to synchronize with Erebus's quantum signature. But I'll not risk collapsing our harmonics unless we're certain of success. Lyrien's gaze met Vexar's, her eyes sparkling with urgency. The faintest hint of warning still lingered in Captain Jackson's voice on the comms feed, a cautionary note that seemed to tremble between them like an unsaid truth. Captain, Asterion interjected quietly, his finger hovering over the console controls. I calculate a 1.837% margin for error in our calculations. If we get it wrong. Vexar raised a hand, halting Asterion's words as surely as fate itself suspended time. The crew held their collective breath, poised on the cusp of this fateful choice. We're not calculating mere statistical probability, Vexar stated flatly, his eyes narrowing into sharp focus. We're talking about navigating an uncharted quantum realm. Lyrien let out a soft exhalation as the data stream slowed on her console, like a celestial clockwork winding down from maximum RPMs to near stasis. What are we waiting for? Vexar asked quietly, his voice breaking free of tension. We've run the gamut of possible outcomes. Now it's time to choose. The holographic displays surrounding them shivered softly, casting fragmented shadows across their faces like a kaleidoscope turning inward into the core of the ship itself. Then I suppose that settles it, Asterion said after an interminable silence. It seems fate has no say in what we do next. Their shared gaze froze for what felt like eternity as Vexar stilled the tremble from his hand, weighing every option as one could hold sand within a fist, fragile, precious, and so easily lost to entropy. The air vibrated with quiet anticipation, and then, all at once,